Right now, the flooding is along the Missouri River in Nebraska, Missouri, and Iowa. But you may be wondering, how will this affect us here in New Orleans along the Mississippi River? There will be some effects, but nothing as drastic as what's happening right now far north. Incredible images of flooding along the Missouri River, fields and neighborhoods that look like lakes in Iowa. National Guard helicopters dropping sandbags to contain flooding near Fremont, Nebraska. The flooding is the result of a powerful low-pressure system that intensified quickly, dumping inches of rain and snow late last week. The Missouri River feeds into the Mississippi River at St. Louis. So how will it affect us downriver in Louisiana? Not to worry, the effect here will be much more subtle. The Mississippi River in New Orleans is cresting right now at just below flood stage of 17 feet. Levees protect all the way up to 20 feet. National Weather Service hydrologist Pat Brown says the river is forecast to gradually fall through the end of March. Then a secondary rise due to upriver flooding is expected here in early April. But it's not expected to be as high as even the current crest in New Orleans. Often, major flooding north subsides as the river widens downstream in Louisiana. And by the way, the Pearl River is forecast to drop below even minor flood stage by Wednesday, and the Atchafalaya River in Morgan City is cresting right now and will soon begin a very slow fall.